heathens, and welcome to my channel. I am Beauty Heathen, and my channel is dedicated to the exploration of paganism through the medium of cosmetics. If you enjoy this subject matter or find my content of interest, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and set the bell to all to be notified of when I upload new videos. In today's episode, we will be exploring the theology of druidry. Sorry about that. Before I get into this video will likely be a long one just because of the extensive history and information behind druidry and druidism. I cut out quite a lot of information that I didn't feel was necessarily needed in the video, but there's still quite a bit to get through. I'm going to try my best to keep this as brief as possible. If you're a fan of Outlander, like I am, when I mention the Druids, you may get visions of women dancing in circles, holding lanterns, and chanting as they sing their rituals into existence. Although these visions of modern Druidism date back to the 18th century, Druidry is far more ancient than that. A Druid, historically, was a member of the high-ranking professional class in ancient Celtic cultures. They served as religious leaders, legal authorities, adjudicators, lore keepers, medical professionals, and political advisors. While the Druids are reported to have been literate, they are believed to have been prevented by doctrine from recording their knowledge in written form. Thus, they left no written accounts of themselves. However, they are attested in some detail by their contemporaries from other cultures, such as the Romans and Greeks. And before I get into the nitty-gritty of the look that I'll be doing, I'm using, as per typical, the LA Girl Pro Coverage HD foundation in color porcelain. I've already prepped the head with hairspray, the foundation, and the Becca Hydra Mist setting powder. Thank you, camera. Please do not do that to me. And of course, sorry, it's a little dry in this room. Okay. I think for today, I'm going to try to do a somewhat earthy look. I haven't quite figured out which palettes I'm using yet, but I always have the tried and true So Jaded palette right next to me, if need be. Let's see, where do I want to start today? I'll probably start on the face, since it tends to go a little bit quicker. I'm using the Ulta palette, and I'm thinking I will do the matte nude pink blush, given the culture and the heritage. I think that's an appropriate color. The earliest known references to the Druids date back to the 4th century BCE, and the oldest detailed description comes from Julius Caesar's Commentari de Bello Gallico, which is dated around in the 50s BC. So when you look at the timetable, we have the BC time period that moves from the largest known date down in numerical order. Then when AD came to be, Anno Domini, that's when time started moving in an upward scale. So when I'm talking about BC, when I was talking about the more ancient traditions and belief systems in history, obviously it moved from furthest time ago up until Anno Domini, which is around the birth of Christ. If you're not familiar with AD and BC time periods, BC basically stands for before Christ, and Anno Domini is after Christ was born. Of course, that's if you're going with the agnostic or religious definitions. They also have BCE and CE now, current and before current. That color seemed to go on pretty well. And as usual, you cannot go based off of how these heads react to how the products perform. They are not reminiscent of real skin, and I encourage you, if any of these products interest you, to maybe stop by an Ulta store or Sephora or somewhere and try them out yourself, although this particular product is specifically from Ulta. I'm just trying to mute the pink just ever so slightly. I think that's pretty good. Druids were also described by later Greco-Roman writers such as Cicero, Tacitus, and Pliny the Elder, following the Roman invasion of Gaul. The Druid orders were suppressed by the Roman government under the 1st century AD emperors of Tiberius and Claudius, and had pretty much disappeared from any written record by the 2nd century. In around 750 AD, the word druid starts appearing more and more in writings, such as a poem by Blathmack. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing these names. He wrote a poem about Jesus. The Druids also appear in some of the medieval takes from Christianized Ireland, like the... Oh man, I practiced this for quite some time. Tan Bocolan? I think it's Tan Bocolan, where they are largely portrayed as sorcerers who oppose the coming of Christianity. In the wake of the Celtic revival during the 18th and 19th centuries, fraternal and neo-pagan groups were founded based on the ideas about the ancient Druids, a movement known as, of course, Neo-Druidism. Many popular notions about Druids based on misconceptions of the 18th century scholars have been largely superseded by more recent discovery and study. I'm thinking for highlight, I'll go with this. It's almost like a rose gold They just call it pink highlighter. This one's actually called rose gold, but I think it's too dark for this skin tone, so we will go with the pink one. I might actually try doing more to the face tonight since this is going to be a longer video. We will see how that works out. Let's see. Is that showing up at all? A little bit. It's not a blinding highlight, but you can build it up a bit. So, the Greco-Roman and vernacular Irish sources agree that the Druids played a very important part in pagan Celtic society. In his description, Julius Caesar claimed that they were one of the two most important social groups in the region, alongside with the nobles, and were responsible for organizing worship and sacrifices, divination, even judicial procedure in Gaulish, British, and Irish societies. He also claimed that they were exempt from military service and from the payment of taxes. Just trying to make sure that that highlight is going down a little bit. Probably could use a little bit of a boost. There we go. That's a little bit better. I just keep checking my camera, making sure it's not washing it out again. They also had the power to excommunicate people from religious festivals, making them social outcasts, basically. And two other classical writers, Diodorus Siculus and Strabo, also wrote about the role of Druids in Gallic society, even claiming that the Druids were held in such high esteem and respect that if they actually intervened between two armies, they could stop a battle. Pomponius Mela was the first author to say that Druids' instruction was secret and took place in caves and forests. Druidic lore consisted of a large number of verses that were learned by heart, and Julius Caesar remarked that it could take up to 20 years to complete the course of study. What was taught to Druidic novices anywhere is absolute conjecture of the Druids' oral literature. Not one certifiably ancient verse is known to have survived, even in translation. All instruction was communicated orally, but for ordinary purposes. Caesar reports the Gauls had a written language in which they used Greek characters, but in this he probably draws on earlier writers by the time of Caesar, Gaulish inscriptions had moved from Greek script to Latin script. And let me just see here. What am I brave enough to try today? I have bronzer. And I know I have a contour palette somewhere. There it is. Let's see if I can be a little bit brave today. I make no promises as to how this will come out, but you don't know until you try. And I know I'm doing things out of order, but you know, I am a novice and giving things a whirl. This is BH Studio Pro Contour Palette, and I do have that bronzer next to me, but I might try just using this palette and see what happens. Again, I've never done this part before, so we shall see. Greek and Roman writers frequently made reference to the Druids as practitioners of human sacrifice. According to Caesar, those who had been found guilty of theft or other criminal offenses were considered preferable for use as sacrificial victims. But when criminals were in short supply, apparently, well, he proclaims that innocence would be acceptable, and a form of sacrifice recorded by Caesar was the burning alive of victims in a large wooden effigy, now often known as a wicker man. So if you've seen that movie, you kind of know what I'm talking about. Obviously I haven't blended this out yet, so of course it's gonna look like a extremely hot mess initially. I do know how to blend it out. I'm just getting there. I know you're supposed to do it in an E on both sides. Can I just say, for all intents and purposes, I've never understood why you do your contour and bronzer in the same shape. Maybe anyone who's more familiar with cosmetics can comment an explanation of that down below in the comments, because I'm honestly curious why you would need two brown powders in the same exact areas. I know bronzer brings color back to the face, and contour is basically just to shape the face. I don't know, it just seems a little strange to me. I'm having to blow off all the powder that's just gotten everywhere. Let's see. A differing account, however, came from the 10th century, when Commenta Bernensia, which claimed that the sacrifices to deities were by drowning, hanging, and burning, something known as a threefold death, where one person dies simultaneously in 3 ways. Lovely to think about, isn't it? Diodorus Siculus asserts that a sacrifice acceptable to the Celtic gods had to be attended by a druid, for they were the intermediaries between the people and the divinities. He remarked upon the importance of prophets as well in druidic rituals. And I am not sure that this is going to fully blend out, simply because of the nature of the cosmetics on this HUD. Worst case scenario, I gave it my best shot, right? Well, it's blending out a little bit better there. It's just not doing very well around the chin area, but that's okay. For the most part, it's kind of hidden. Now try to reapply some of that blush. Not using the same brush I had originally applied it with because I dirtied it. But that's okay. I washed them all, so it's fine. However, in all of their claims, there is archaeological evidence from Western Europe that has been widely used to back up the idea that human sacrifice was performed by Iron Age Celts. Mass graves found in ritual contexts dating from this period have been unearthed in Gaul. The excavator of these sites, meaning the archaeologist who dug them up, Jean-Louis Bruneau, interpreted them as areas of human sacrifice and devotion to a war god. And here's where the however comes. This view was criticized by another archaeologist named Martin Brown, who believed that the corpses might have been those of honored warriors buried in the sanctuary rather than those of people who were sacrificed. Some historians have questioned whether the Greco-Roman writers were accurate in their claims. And one such historian, J. Rives, remarked that it was ambiguous whether the Druids ever performed such sacrifices, because the Romans and Greeks were known to project what they saw as barbarian traits onto foreign peoples, including not only Druids, but people who were Jewish and Christians as well, thereby confirming their own mental, cultural superiority in their own minds. So, which is a very long-winded way to say that they were known to fudge it a bit to make themselves sound and look better. Okay, I'm just making sure the highlights stayed, which it did. Some little bit dimension there. I think I'm gonna forego with the bronzing though, because I think that gave more than enough color. And Nora Chadwick, an expert in medieval Welsh and Irish literature, who believed the Druids to be great philosophers, has also supported the idea that they had not been involved in human sacrifice, and that such accusations were nothing more than imperialist Roman propaganda. Which, to be honest, it wouldn't have been the first time or the last time. But anyway, now that I've covered more of the ancient aspects, at least as much as possible, let me move forward back to what we know it to be today. And I have a little hair there that's stuck in the NYX primer I used. This is the part where I wish I had long nails, because short nails do not help. There we go. I'm just trying to brush off some of the Becca Hydra Mist setting powder a bit to try to level the application area. Just a hair. Okay, do we go for the So Jaded palette, or shall we be brave? This Butter London palette I got from BoxyCharm. I might try the color Temptress on the crease. Let me get a better brush for that. There we go. Moving forward to modern times, Druidry, sometimes termed Druidism, is today considered a spiritual or religious movement that generally promotes harmony, connection, reverence for the natural world. Hello! Okay, we found another palette that actually shows up with some pigment on these heads. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to blend that out. I wasn't expecting that. There we go. Deepen that a bit. Let's see what we can do here. It's blending out well. As always, on the eyes, I use the NYX White Eye Primer. I try to give the eyeshadows the best chance I can. Obviously, things are not always going to work as well as they will on human skin. Just as another little reminder. As per usual, the movement towards Druidism has also in some ways combined with an environmental purpose as well. Originating in Britain during the 18th century, which, if you are a fan of Outlander or have seen any of the episodes, that's about the same time period when Druidism started coming back into fashion, as it were. It was originally a cultural movement and only started gaining religious and spiritual connotations in the 19th century. The core principles of Druidry is respect and veneration of nature, much like pretty much any of the pagan paths. And as such, it often involves, like I said, participation in environmental movements. I believe some druids in Europe have become involved in protests and such when certain things such as fracking were being done in some areas and so forth. Another prominent belief among modern druids is, as with many pagan religions, the veneration of ancestors, particularly those who belong to prehistoric societies. The concerns of modern druidry, which include healing the planet and seeking connections with the natural world, are likely very different from those of the Iron Age societies in which the original druids lived, due to the scarcity of knowledge about the Iron Age Druids, their belief system cannot really be accurately reconstructed. That knowledge base is gone. It's just gone. And unfortunately, some Druids, and this may not make me very popular with anyone who calls themselves or considers themselves to be a Druid, but many people who do consider themselves to be Druids have a somewhat romanticized notion of the Iron Age Druids of history. I'm using the Baked Browns palette, and I'm using this reddish brown shade. We'll see if it works at all. Well, it's definitely working today. And many Druids believe that the practices of the Iron Age Druids should be revived, yet modified to meet current needs. Some practitioners regard Druidry as a form of native spirituality, which to a degree it is one that was ancestral and tribal to the Celtic communities. And it displays an affinity for folk religions. In defining Druidry as a native spirituality, some Druids, and I'm not defending it by any means, but I can kind of understand it, to try to rebuild that tribalism. Many have, well, I can't even say many, some have adopted such belief systems that you might find of Australian Aborigines and Native American communities. Some groups even use the word Druid for both male and female practitioners, eschewing the term Druidess for female followers of the path. And again, not defending it, but I can understand the mentality. Once again, a lot of the ancestral heritage and tribalism that these communities once had were stripped from them. They were stolen from them by the Christian church and the spread of Christianity, and many of them just are doing everything they can to try to grasp onto that heritage in any way they can think to do so. So, call it what you like, but I can't help but understand why it is that they are trying to rebuild that using other cultures' practices in an effort to try to, as best as they can, revive their own. Druidry is now described as a polytheistic belief system, although there is no set pantheon of deities to which all Druids adhere. So it's not like the Egyptians, where when you think of pantheons, you can pick out deities that pretty much all Egyptians believed in and venerated. In Druidry, they don't really have one set group. I'm going to try the color Peridot on the eyes, trying to do a more earthen look and give it somewhat of a shimmer. I don't know how well it will translate, considering I had mistakenly put down a little too much shadow, but we will see. But there is a concept in Druidry called Awen, A-W-E-N, and it's the term that they use basically for spirit or divinity. And it also is said to inspire poetry and art, and is believed to be a flowing of spirit given by the deity, which can be invoked by a druid. In many druidic rituals, Awen is invoked by either chanting the word Awen or A-I-O 3 times in order to shift the consciousness of the participants involved. And the word Awen derives from the Welsh and Cornish terms for inspiration. Druidic groups are often called groves, and I think the best term I can use is acolytes, or initiates coming into the Druidic order often go through 3 phases. You have the bards, the ovates, and then druids. They have a 3-tier system. And if you are Wiccan watching this and this sounds familiar, there's a very good reason why that is. What is his name? Gardner was originally started off as a druid and went on to develop Wicca. Okay, can she do it left-handed? We will see. Maybe. Maybe she can. Someone steady wins the race, right? I'm just gonna clean this off just a hair, so maybe I can get a little bit more pigment down. Just skipping ahead a bit. Some of this is a little bit redundant and some of it isn't really necessary. The things that I thought I edited out and necessarily missed. There are certain sacred sites considered by druids. A few of these sites include areas where the formations in the natural landscape or at prehistoric sites. Among them may include megalith constructions from the Neolithic and Bronze Age, or earthworks from the Iron Age. Modern-day druids often believe that even if the Iron Age druids did not build these monuments, they most likely used them for their rites. Performing rituals at said sites allows many druids to feel that they are getting close to their ancestors, and druids regard them as sacred sites in part as recognition that prehistoric societies would have done the same. Druids in various parts of Ireland and Britain have reported such sites being home to a spirit of the place residing there. Some such sites, and this kind of touches on my spirit a bit, and I'll comment why in a second, include some such sites considered to be sacred to the Druids include the Hill of Tara and Newgrange in Ireland, which, if you follow, I believe it is the winter solstice, often reported in the news that there is an increase in tourism to that site during that time of year. And the same is said for, of course, Stonehenge in Scotland. Now, the reason why I said it kind of touches my spirit a bit, and apparently that was not a clean brush, is because a couple years ago I went to Ireland. One of the places I absolutely wanted to visit was Newgrange, and sadly I never made it there. I struggled to buy a ticket online. I struggled getting a ticket at all. And any time that was available seemed to get booked pretty quickly. Looks like I lifted off a bit of pigment there, so we're trying to put it back down. A friend of mine from the UK even came over and spent a day with me, and even she struggled to get a ticket, so it just wasn't meant to be during that trip. But I did get to go see the Hills of Tara, and it was absolutely beautiful. Very windy, but it's Ireland and you're going to encounter that quite a bit. But yeah, I was very blessed to have been able to go at that time. I hope to one day return and visit again. And maybe, just maybe, when I do, I'm going to put it out into the universe, when I go back, I will actually get to see Newgrange. I'm trying to decide what I want to do for that upper area. Do I want to do moonstone? Do I want to do diamond? Or do I want to do pearl? While I contemplate on that, among many druids, there is a system of tree lore, through which different associations are attributed to different species of trees, including particular moods, actions, phases of life, deities, and ancestors. And I actually have a Celtic, I actually dipped into pearl, a set of cards that talks about the trees a bit. I'm not so sure this color is gonna work. I may have to go in with something a little bit more pigmented, because right now this is looking just like I put white highlighter up on the brow bone, and that wasn't quite what I was going for. So choosing something else, maybe diamond. Haven't used that before. Let me try a different brush. No, I still have to do the lips. This is a very soft color. So be aware if you get this So Jaded palette. I'm lifting off some color again. I think I put on too much because now it's lifting off. It's too bad. The diamond color is almost putty-like. Let's see. Seemed to go down better on that eye. Let me try. Worst case scenario is it doesn't work, right? Let's see. Trying to pack it down a little bit. It just doesn't want to adhere. Oh well. It is a very pinkish color with maybe some blue flecks in it. It's a very beautiful color. Let me see if I can put some down on my skin. Give you a better idea. Actually, not blue, maybe more like golden green. It looks like a multi-chrome. Trying to get that to show up a bit. But different species of trees are often linked to the Ogham alphabet, which is a very, very ancient alphabet that has survived to modern day times. Kind of think of it sort of like ancient runes for the Nordic Vikings and such, except this is the Celtic version, which is employed in divination by druids. Rather than Ogham, some practitioners favor probably the Sealbren alphabet, an alphabet devised by Iolo Morgan something WG is at the end of his name for divination practices. Many druids engage in a range of healing therapies, with both herbalism and homeopathy being popular within the druidic community. And now let me try to find a color for the mouth that will work. How bold am I feeling? Do I feel like that's a good color for this look? I didn't go too bold with the eye, did I? I think that's a little too muted. Let's see. I know one of these will not work at all. That one definitely won't. Let me see what this one is. It's called London Fog. It's from Gerard Cosmetics, although it's kind of a gray color. I don't think that will work for this look. So let's try to be a little bit brave, shall we? And do Merlot. But druids generally observe 8 ritual festivals annually. You can find a lot of this information if you especially look up the Wheel of the Year. These festivals are collectively known as, again, the Wheel of the Year. These are the same festivals usually celebrated by Wiccans. And, there's his name. One member of the ancient order of Druids was the English man named Gerald Gardner, who later established Gardnerian Wicca. So, all in all, if Wicca is a little maybe too light for you, you might want to look into Druidism. They do carry a lot of the same beliefs and practices. They celebrate pretty much the same exact calendar. Trying to line the lip a bit. Which isn't necessarily easy with a brush, but I'm giving it a shot. I think that's a pretty color for this look. And hopefully I'm not doing a bad job of it. This is a really beautiful deep wine color. I remember when I pulled these colors out of the box, this color I had bought as one I was contemplating wearing myself. And I still might. The one place I tend not to do too badly is on the lips. Of course, watch me jinx myself on that now. There we go. I think that's a decent look for today. And sorry that one I got a little bit botched, but all in all, doesn't look too bad. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'm so grateful that you're here with me and that you took the time to watch. And as always, I know I'm a slow talker, so feel free to watch these videos sped up. I am still somewhat able to be understood, especially because I do speak slowly, so I might sound a little bit like a chipmunk, but not too much. And with all of that said, thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. And until next time, brightest blessings and blessed be.